Hey guys, welcome back to Born in Faith Childbirth Education, Discipling Families. I am your host, Doula, Childbirth Educator Mom, Maria Jose. In our last lesson, we learned about the pain and fear cycle. So today, we are going to go over our environmental interventions so that we can understand what that means a little bit, right? So our environment affects labor and it affects if we feel fear or tension and puts us in that cycle. Remember, we're primal. Most of us are at least where we can connect to that instinctual part of us. So the first environmental intervention is choosing your provider. You want to make sure you're comfortable with your provider and you want to make sure that your provider aligns with your birth plan. This includes your midwife because there are midwives who are very hands on and very open with quote unquote speeding up labor. And maybe that's the type of birth that you want, that you're okay, you just want it at home and you want them to intervene um wherever they feel fit, right? So just like an OB, most OBs have never seen an unmedicated birth. They're very pro intervention. So that's something you want to keep in mind as you're choosing a provider. You are choosing a provider to intervene in your birth in case quote unquote anything goes wrong. So this is why it's the first one, because you're already choosing an intervention. That's why there's women who free birth, right? Because they don't want that type of intervention. They're okay with whatever comes with them having like a free birth or a home birth and stuff like that, right? Because the next place that is an environment intervention is your birth location. So your birth location needs to be where you feel safe, like truly feel safe. It cannot be like you think you feel safe, maybe I'll feel safe. Like you feel safe, you're safe. You have to feel respected, right? This even happens in home births where mother-in-laws or moms are not respecting the birthing space, or birth assistants are not respecting the birth space, nurses and stuff like that are not respecting the birth space. So you have to be okay with where you give birth. Obviously, pray for your birth team to be in good spirits, because you could have bonded with your doula, but then the day of, bonded with your midwife, but then the day of, bonded with your OB, but then the day of, they're pressuring you and they're making you feel a certain type of way. So, always pray and choose, making sure that you're getting God's approval and confirmation on who you're choosing, your birth location. And remember, this is not to cause anxiety. Always view your choices with God as like a playground. He will tell you no when it's a no. So, if He's been making a way for you, walk in that, right? So the third intervention, this is very common, especially if you're having like a birth center or a hospital birth, right? Is leaving your house. You don't want to leave too early during labor. This can stall contractions, and your risk of your birth or your labor being augmented goes up, right? Like they'll use Pitocin or they'll try to break your waters, depending on where you are, if you're dilator or ephase. Those are all things that can come into play once you leave your house. It disrupts your hormones. You always want to leave your home once you're in active labor, not early labor. So always be mindful about that. So be prepared to labor, at home, whether you're having a home birth or not, because you want to make sure you're decently further along in your contractions, that they're steady and strong and lasting enough so that when you get to the hospital, you're literally just going there to give birth. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't want to give birth in the car. That's honestly your best bet if you want an unmedicated, undisturbed birth. So the right time to leave, this is something that affects when you give birth. And then the next one, right, your mindset is an environmental intervention, because depending on where you are, right, if your birth location has bright lights, if your the staff is making you uncomfortable, that starts messing with your mind. You start getting fearful, you start doubting your ability to birth. You need to renew your mind. This can even happen in a home birth, so always be mindful of who you're bringing into the birth space, because even people that you think you're comfortable with, you might not be comfortable with making noises. Like, you're not gonna be that quiet mom that you see on Instagram all the time. There's gonna be moments where you're gonna feel like grunting, yelling, getting loud, and you have to be comfortable with that. Like, and again, nurses, a lot of them have never seen an unmedicated birth. A lot of people get the epidural. There's no shame in that, but I've been in birth rooms where the mom is laboring natural and a nurse comes in because she thinks something's wrong, and it's like, we're just giving birth here, ma'am. So it's always interesting to see, and I just want you guys to be mindful about this as you go into your, your birth plans, and you're choosing your provider, your birth location, choosing when to leave the house, and your mindset. Like, it's so important. So this is it for today's lesson. I'll see you guys on the next one, where we're going to talk about routine medical interventions, so we can continue to educate you guys. I'll see you guys on the next lesson.